Good afternoon. This is going to be the Neato disassembly video. To start off, we're going to go over the parts that you'll need to disassemble your robot. I have a regular Phillips head screwdriver to remove the batteries, and the important screwdriver you'll need for most of this assembly is a T10 Torx wrench. Alright, so we've got those types of things. And to protect the laser top here for the Neato, you'll need a stand that's going to protect any pressure from being placed on the turret top. So I have a piece of styrofoam that's got a very kind of a deep inset here, so when I flip the robot upside down, this turret's going to rest inside this empty cavity, and it'll be supported on all four sides by the styrofoam. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we'll remove the parts that are typically user replaceable. I'll remove the dustbin. We're going to end up removing the batteries for safety, so I'm going to go ahead and flip the battery switch to off in here. And now we're ready to flip the robot upside down to make sure it's seated on the styrofoam so I can press on it. And then we'll remove the side brush, and we'll remove the big brush cover, and we'll remove the brush. This way we can rotate the lid pieces without pieces falling off. Now the next thing we're going to do, because we are going to remove and flip the chassis over to get at the side brush motor, is we're going to go ahead and remove the two screws here with the arrows right here and here that point to the only Phillips screws that are on the bottom of the robot. So we'll go ahead and remove those like that. That lid lifts up, and then we get a chance to reach the batteries. The battery has a little squeeze connector in this side. You push the little tab and pull up. The little tab is right here. You just push that in at the top, which releases it, and pull straight up, and the battery will come out. And now we have most of the electronics, the user replaceable parts, taken out. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to need to remove some of the screws, and we also need to remove the front bumper assembly. The easiest way to remove the front bumper assembly while the robot's upside down is to grab, while it's upside down, one edge and pull it back like I'm doing on this side. There's a little plastic tab, and then when you look at this thing here, you've got a plastic tab here, you've got a clear. These are angled, so when you end up slipping the bumper back on, it'll slip on easier than it was to take off. Alright. Now the operation involves just removing the Torx screws from the casing. On the underside, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Torx screws. So I'm going to remove the 8 Torx screws right now. There we go. So we got 8. All 8 screws have been removed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're ready to flip the robot back up onto its feet, and in this particular case, since I'm using this piece of styrofoam which is going to rest in here, the legs, the actual wheels, won't be pressed down, so it'll just be a little bit easier. When you flip the robot over onto its top, there are 2 additional screws that need to be removed. Also Torx screws. One over here and one exactly on the opposite side, hidden by the bumper when the bumper's on. So let's go ahead and remove That gives a total of 10 screws that are removed. Alright, now we removed all 10 screws, including the 2 on the top. We can now press on these tabs right here to actually lift up and separate the 2 half sections. That one, that one. Now once you lift the lid, be careful because there's going to be a wire, a pretty big one, over here, and a wire assembly over here that connects the main circuit board on the top lid with the circuit board on the bottom. Just get that out of the way right now. I'm just going to leave this connector attached because I don't want to flex this circuit board. You don't want to bend this circuit board because the surface mount components will end up failing on you. A couple other things to note: the switch for the dustpan is just this rubber thing that sits on top of the circuit board, and when you flip the circuit board around or move things around, you have to make sure that that doesn't become dislodged. And the 2 switches right on the circuit board, they're tactile switches, are located right there, and they have to end up lining up with the switches on the top of the board when all is said and done. So now we're looking at the main interior part of the board. The side brush motor is located right here, and the belt system for it is located underneath this area of the circuit board. So the only way to get at it is to remove all of these wire connectors from the circuit board over in this area here. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then flip the board up, and then you'll be able to get this motor out, and this wiring harness won't be over top of it. The only other thing that's of note on this particular robot is the side pressure switch is located right here. That can just pull out to give you access. So next thing we're going to do is remove all these connectors so that we can flip this wiring harness up and out of the way from the circuit board. Now again, when you're pulling at these connectors, don't let the circuit board, which is floating in free space, flex too much, otherwise you'll break the connections for the parts that are actually on the board. The big one, this big connector here, this second one, has a squeeze release. So that one's easy, so we squeeze that one, and that comes right off. The remaining connectors that are on this side just have a press fit, and some of them might be hard to remove than the others. They're all going to be different, and when the wiring harness comes away, you'll kind of remember where they all go because they're different numbers of pins, and they only reach the area that they're supposed to go. But it's a good idea to keep track of them. So we removed these 2 over here. We're going to move these 3 underneath, this one, and this one. This one over here goes to the proximity sensor in this corner. And to access this motor, we won't have to remove that in order to get at that. So I'm going to go around the horn here. Okay, so now we've gotten all of the connectors. Just be careful when you pull here. You won't be able to move the wiring harness that far until you actually pull up the switch mechanism. Don't lose the spring. And then once you do that, you can get the wiring harness out of the area. There's 3 torque screws to remove this particular motor. There's one located very easy to see right here. You won't see it in the video, but there's one located right here next to this post, very easily seen. Unfortunately, the third one is located underneath the circuit board. So that's why another reason why we had to remove this wiring harness was to get underneath the circuit board. So we're going to go ahead. The circuit board is held in on this side by these 2 white clips. So if we flip the clips, we'll be able to lift the circuit board up. So I'll go ahead and push one clip back there, and to pull the strain off, I flip both of those clips. This is the rubber USB cover for the USB port. We'll remove that just so we don't lose it right now. And now when I angle up the board, the third, and you probably won't see it on the video, but the third mount for the motor is right here. So I'm going to pull that screw out first. That's our first one. first torque for the motor assembly, and then the other two, which are very easy. We'll move this way. And this one. And then once you have the 3 torque screws removed, you can now flip the board up, get that, and lift the motor straight up. And there's a wire that connects underneath the board that's pretty long. But once we have the motor flipped right set up, you can now see what the assembly looks like. So we have the motor with the brass capstan over here and the belt over here. So if we remove the old belt, and this was a test belt I had gotten from the internet, there's the belt, and then this actual piece just sits on this post and just greases, and that's the magnetic part that actually connects to the belt when it's underneath the item. So this works like this. So that's how the side belt works. And when the side brush gets caught up on something, what seems to happen here is this binds up, but the motor keeps running, so the whole thing slips. So as you see in our example here, that's what chews up these belts, because while the belt is frozen, it's running up against this brass capstan and just slipping with friction. So we're ready to replace this one. I'm going to pause the video for just a second so I can clean out some of the gook that's over here. All right.